Hello, this is Krodon here with a Gang Beast discussion video. I'm going to be talking about some problems I think are present in Gang Beast, as well as some possible solutions or improvements. Whether you agree or disagree with what I say in the video, please comment to share your thoughts on the subject, as well as how you would like Gang Beast to be. Now, some of the things I'll be covering in this video are the issues with KOs or knockouts, KO recovery, unconsciousness timing, throwing and eliminating opponents, and the possibility of weapons. First, since in recent Gang Beast updates, knocking out opponents seems to be a lot more difficult and inconsistent. My main combat strategy is the one in my How to Knock Out People in Gang Beast tips and tricks video. It involves grabbing a hold of the opponent with one arm, then repeatedly pressing or spamming your other arm's punch button and the headbutt button. In the past, this was a very effective method for KOing opponents, although at times I did wonder if I helped to sort of ruin Gang Beast with such a method. However, I'd prefer going back to that version of Gang Beast instead of what exists currently. Ideally, I want the combat system to be less random and more tactical, with the possible addition of combat stamina or energy, making strategies like spamming less effective. Perhaps there could be combos and slight damage multipliers or increments associated with them, like there is in the UFC 2 and maybe 3 games. Focusing back on the recent versions, this clip, where I am a green character, is a trimmed version of a round of Gang Beasts where I targeted an opponent who was in the lead. I chased them and kept attacking them for around 5 minutes. My attacks appear to be very ineffective. In this 1 minute and 15-second section, I was KO'd once and my opponent was KO'd only twice. In the end, this round ended in a tie even after I was trying to aggressively pursue and eliminate this specific opponent who was in the lead. Also, my reward for all my hard work was the R1 button on my controller being nearly broken and is very loose, almost falling out. So be careful if you decide to use my KO method, as it can damage your controller. This fight atop the train further shows the issues with KOs, as well as another related problem, KO recovery, which makes the whole situation worse. Even when you manage to KO your opponent, they usually recover faster than you are able to eliminate them. In previous versions, and maybe still in the current version, which is Gang Beast 1.0.8, a character stays unconscious longer each time they are KO'd. Unfortunately, the recovery in 1.0.8 is too fast to throw away an enemy, along with the current throwing system. Now, in this fight between two other players, the Flower Gangster managed to KO the blue caped beast a couple times, but for some reason the blue character manages to survive the pink goop. It's unclear to me if they are holding onto the wall or luckily standing on something just beneath the surface. In the end, the Flower Gangster ends up losing. I'm not sure whether the KO system, KO recovery, throwing, possibly cheating, or a glitch with this specific map is the root of the issue. But this clip and the next are from mid-June 2018. In the beginning of this rooftop clip, there's a hat throw. It would be cool if weapons were added to the game and actions like throwing your helmet would do damage and be an actual game mechanic, although maybe that would make cosmetic portions of the game to be unbalanced in terms of gameplay. Anyways, in this clip my opponent is performing better than my blue character. I survived the first throw as I'm holding onto them, a benefit of my now possibly ineffective KO style. Then I get KO'd but recover before I can get thrown off. The same thing happens a second time, where I am saved by the ledge. The third time I'm KO'd, I somehow recover faster than the previous 2 times. Again, on the 4th KO, I recover and escape while they just struggle to throw me off. The 5th time is a narrow recovery as I wake up just as I'm about to fall off the building. The 6th time is another quick recovery. The 7th time I'm KO'd is similar, and so is the 8th. Then I finally KO the opponent, but they recover. But then I get knocked down a 9th time, and when my opponent maybe accidentally falls off the ledge while carrying me off, as throwing was proven to be ineffective, I managed to KO them and hold on, counting as a win for me. However, this is a clip from over a year ago, so I think in the current version this would only be a draw. But I think you could still see the problems with the KO recovery and throwing. Now, taking a brief revisit to the hat throw, it seems that it no longer works, as seen in this clip from July 23rd, 2019. Maybe one can argue that the new updates have simply made my spamming method a lot weaker and that the KO system is fine. However, I think it's still too difficult and random to KO someone overall. One method which seems to have become the new most effective KO tool is the dropkick. In this clip, I first managed to climb out using the Krodon flip method shown in my advanced how to climb in Gang Beast tutorial video, but then I am one-hit KO'd with the dropkick. This is a clip from a year ago before the dropkick was as popular and maybe as effective, though I haven't been able to use the dropkick to KO people, which may be due to it possibly being nerfed or weakened or my inaccuracy. Next, there is a minor issue with the Chutes map. The KO height or zone seems to have been lowered. This allows for people who fall through the trapdoors to hang onto the walls and survive for a bit, needlessly prolonging the match. In the first clip, 2 people are hanging onto the trapdoors. In the second, my opponent is hanging onto me under the trapdoors. I believe in previous versions of the game, they would have been eliminated already. So it would be nice if this could be fixed, and it doesn't seem to be too complicated, as it probably just has to do with the height of the elimination zone. Not only is it difficult to KO someone now, but the throwing makes the problem worse. The following clips were recorded when I was trying to make a tutorial on how to throw opponents. Unfortunately, it was difficult to figure out a consistent method. One method I was trying to use was trying to grab the opponent's legs or feet. The lower I grabbed them, the higher they seemed to be lifted when they were unconscious, and I held the lift button, which is triangle on PS4. However, it's difficult to grab and target a specific section of the opponent, plus the KO recovery can be too fast. This makes it too hard to throw them out. In the second clip, I fall off the building and lose during my attempts to throw away the opponent. These throwing clips are actually from June and July 2018, just over a year ago. Now this clip showcases how effective my KO method used to be, a bit too effective perhaps, but it still took me multiple tries to throw the opponent off. I managed to throw them just in time, because if the KO recovery was faster, as it seems to be in the latest versions, it likely would have awoken and just held on to me. I get a nice throw off in this clip after repositioning. It's hard to tell if the opponent woke up or not, just as I was about to throw them. Maybe a way to make throwing better would be to boost the power of throws when the opponent is unconscious, or also if you're grabbing their back or lower areas of their body. In this clip, I managed to throw them off by the back of their belt. On my second attempt, grabbing the side of this opponent allowed me to successfully eliminate them. As I mentioned, these 6 clips are from June and July 2018, which I believe was from version 1.0.4. This was before the train update. Let's move on to a new feature that can be added to the game to possibly improve it: weapons. I think being able to use the environment to your advantage and manipulate the physics to whack opponents with garbage cans or throwing vending machines onto them would be cool. It would add another layer of strategy or just gameplay to the game. Maybe it can be more advanced and involve having actual equipped weapons like bats or fire extinguishers. In the first clip, I wield a section of the railing in the incinerator map as a weapon. However, there's no visible meaningful impact or damage caused to my opponent, even when striking them right in their face. Eventually, they would grab hold of my weapon, neutralizing my attempted attacks. It would also be cool if unconventional weapons were incorporated, like the floor plates. Imagine lifting it up and being able to throw it into a crowd of enemies in the waves mode, or even online. If weapons were to be added, it should be done carefully to make sure that they are balanced. There's a bit of a cautionary tale with the barrels, which is one of the only props or objects that can currently function as a weapon. As you see, it can be quite strong and, in my opinion, overpowered. I failed to use it myself, but my opponent manages to one-hit KO me several times in a row by spinning around while lifting the barrel. I think in order to solve or prevent issues like this, the game should both implement a more physics-based overall combat and KO system, as well as perhaps a weapon stamina bar to better balance heavier, stronger weapons. You should only be able to lift and use heavy weapons with a short time before being too tired and dropping it. Additionally, some extra heavy weapons could require 2 or more teammates to cooperatively lift and use it, like a vending machine. I think it would be better if all the combat and weapons in the game dealt damage in a physics-based way. That may already be the case for some of the unarmed combat, but not weapons, as things like the railings don't seem to cause any harm. Also, looking at this clip, you can see that my character gets suddenly knocked out when making minimal contact with a slowly moving barrel. The unexpected knockout highlights the dangers of OP weapons, as well as why I would prefer the game to go in a more physics-based direction when determining when one is KO'd. Although it could be that this is a bit of a glitch due to the barrel rolling on top of another barrel while moving on the conveyor, but as we saw in the previous clip, the barrels can KO in one hit. On the topic of weapons, Gang Beasts was allegedly originally planned to have some sort of single-player story mode. The developers also supposedly planned to add blunt weapons like baseball bats, according to some forum posts by players. Some said the weapons would only be for the campaign mode. At this time, there has not been any public news about the progress of the story mode and weapons, and whether they were cancelled, delayed, or not. However, I did manage to track down a message from one of the Bone Loaf developers, a founding developer, Michael Brown, aka So Perfect Donkey, which spoke about weapons. He said on April 12, 2019 that new maps and improvements to existing maps are planned. Also, he says that there are no plans to add weapons in the traditional sense, but they do want to make it so weapons can be improvised from the environment, such as boxes, barrels, and broken railings. so conventional melee weapons are not planned by the developers. However, this hopefully still means they will flesh out and improve combat with the barrels and other environmental objects. Now I'll bring up some key changes I've found in each of the updates, starting with the February 14th, 2018 1.0.4 update. This update was the first update with information available online after the December 12, 2017 PS4 release of the game. The only direct combat or gameplay change I found was that they added haptic feedback, so compatible controllers trigger force feedback when taking punches, kicks, headbutts, and other blunt force injuries, or when grip stamina is close to spent. So this change is speaking about how they added vibrations upon certain actions like being attacked. I would also like to highlight that the grip stamina part, as the actual game does not seem to ever mention this mechanic. Before, climbing seemed to have no stamina involved, meaning you could climb for a very long time. Maybe there was just lots of stamina so you never really noticed it. At one point, after one of the updates, maybe even this one, climbing became very difficult. The controller would vibrate quickly from your stamina being used up and then you would fall. I think it even worsened later where, for a little bit, you would fall without any vibration indicating your stamina was low. Or maybe that was before this, I'm not sure. The next update came around 6 months later on August 19, 2018, so it was a bit of a wait from the previous February 14th update. This update added the train map, 5 costumes including the beef mascot, which is the bull costume, and a number of other fixes. There were a couple of modifications listed in the changelog post, such as fixed an issue that made jumping from a climbing posture fail to register in some contexts, as well as fixed an issue that made the velocity of vertical wall jumps excessive in some contexts. I think these two changes affected the climbing, with the first one making it more responsive to the jump button, but the second one made climbing out of dangerous areas more difficult, as they took away the super jump that would happen when you were climbing and quickly tapped the jump button multiple times. I guess that makes sense because it was a bit of a glitch, maybe. Also, they modified the collision detection performance. This could just mean that the game performed better and lag was reduced, but I think it may have also affected the overall combat and impact of hits. One of the most impactful changes, in my opinion, was that they modified concussion timings. I believe this is the change responsible for the too fast KO recovery we currently have, which makes it too difficult, in my opinion, to eliminate opponents in time. I think that the KO recovery should be reverted to an older version where it would be noticeably take longer and longer each time you are KO'd. However, I think it should be balanced so it doesn't end up like the WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2009 game or WWE games in general, where you can spend agonizing minutes on the ground in an uncontrollable KO'd-like state due to taking too much damage. That's not that fun. Additionally, another significant change was that they modified targeting hierarchies to target susceptible body parts when punching, kicking, butting, or head and grabbing. This indicates that some areas of enemies are more likely to be attacked or grabbed than others, so this can be altered to make for effective throwing. Also with this update, the developers wrote that they worked to standardize, optimize, and modularize the game structure to help make new content and systems for a series of planned game modes. They said this work was necessary to configure the game for the playset and story game mode, to support more frequent content releases and bug fix patches, and to support other platforms and markets without negatively impacting work on the other game modes and contents. The key thing I would like to highlight from this is how they mentioned having a series of planned game modes along with writing about playset and story game modes. This could be contrary to what I had thought that the story or the campaign mode was cancelled. At the same time, it may just be that the developers referred to the single player waves mode as story, but that would be strange and not too accurate. Update 1.0.6 was a smaller update released around a month after the train update on September 13, 2018. Two notable changes were made. One was that they modified the draw window to load the next stage in the stage sequence if the stage ends in a draw. Also, they fixed an issue that calculated the forces from headbutts and punches concurrently. I believe the second change had a significant impact on the combat style, specifically by weakening spamming strategies or other methods which relied upon using a large volume of attacks. I cannot remember if the spamming method was weakened to this update, but the description of the change makes it a likely culprit. On November 7, 2018, the 1.0.7 patch was released with just one change, modified the bull mascot head to balance with other costumes. So in the second update after the bull, or beef mascot as it was originally called, was released, it was likely weakened due to it seemingly giving those who wear it a bit of an advantage. Also, the costume testing and debug processes were remade to minimize and limit the scope for potential costume inconsistencies in subsequent builds. I agree with these changes. In the January 24, 2019 update for the game, version 1.0.8, they had a number of changes and fixes, but only one that I felt really affected gameplay. Once again, they modified the build mascot head to balance with other costumes. The description of build says that it includes fixes for the build mascot along with other costume parts which are complex that have compromised gameplay in recent builds. It's good to see that costume items that have given unfair advantage are being worked on. Even though I have a video about wearing capes to make it harder to be thrown, I think the game would be better if costumes were just cosmetic or at least more balanced. Now I'll try to summarize the many topics covered in this video. First, I think that with the current combat system, it is too hard to get KOs with the standard attacks or any method other than the overpowered dropkicks. And even those I was unable to do properly, so I'm not sure if they are already weakened. Some possible improvements could be to make dropkicks less effective, if they haven't already, and maybe go back to a previous version of the combat. However, reverting to an older version is probably not feasible because many changes in a physics-based game like this cause ripple effects and it would mean undoing too many things. To prevent strategies like spamming attacks, there could be a new combat stamina system which makes your strikes slower, less damaging, and less accurate increasingly when you use too many attacks too quickly. Alternatively, counter strategies could be incentivized, like boosting the power of isolated strikes, so taking your time is rewarded, or maybe having a combo-like system where stringing together multiple attacks with proper timing results in increased damage or less stamina loss if the combat stamina suggestion is added. Also, I think the kick attack should be strengthened. Throughout my entire gang beast experience, I've always felt that the kick was a lot weaker than it should be. I feel it should have a different animation or motion, along with more damage and force, but be slower than a punch and maybe as fast or faster than a headbutt. Hopefully the KO system can be improved to be more skill-based and reliable. Even if you KO someone, the fight isn't over yet, which leads us back to KO recovery. Personally, I feel that in the most recent version, opponents can wake up too quickly and this does not allow enough time to eliminate them. So the unconscious timing of an older version of the game where it used to take noticeably longer each time to recover from a KO could be used. The unconscious times, or KO recovery, is actually being worked on, as in the latest PC test build for the game, there are two timers, unconscious time and max unconscious time. Each time you're KO'd, your max unconscious time is increased by 1 second up to a maximum of 6 seconds. Your unconscious time is set to your current max and is decreased 1 second at a time until it reaches 0 and you wake up with full health. Also, your max unconscious time is being reduced by 1 second every 20 seconds whether you are conscious or not. This makes it so you stay unconscious longer each time you are KO'd up to 6 seconds, which seems like a good enough amount of time to eliminate someone, and you can probably do that even before reaching the maximum of 6 seconds. Someone asked if this means you can no longer keep tapping a button to wake up faster, and if the timers are gradual or not. Soporific Donkey, one of the key developers, answered that the timers are gradual and that they think that spamming to wake up no longer works in the new test build for PC. There are also other cool changes in the test build, like they fixed the button spam issue that could increase damage substantially. I'm not sure if this is a specific glitch or just a weakening of the spamming method. Also, they added a system to help when throwing players that are not unconscious. So hopefully throwing is improved and it is easier to eliminate players, but this speaks only about conscious players, while I feel that even KO'd opponents can be difficult to throw recently. The punch was adjusted to have more force and the kick was also adjusted but needs more work. This sounds like good news, making different attacks longer and working on the kick, though it still has progress to go as it says. For the throwing, I think they could perhaps use the targeting hierarchy, change those values a bit, so it makes it so when an opponent is unconscious, you grab lower on their legs so you can more easily throw them, and maybe when they have like a cape or items like that, you can try grabbing around them to avoid the cape and the advantage that that gives. Thank you very much for watching my first discussion type video. Please comment your thoughts on the topics as well as feedback. My previous video is on the left, my newest is on the right, a recommended one is above. If you'd like to support the channel and be notified of future uploads, please subscribe. Thank you.